look at value for tonight's NBA slate. I'm Jason Gilbert, J Gilbert 11. Just 4 games, but we do have some good Halloween GPPs over on DraftKings, kind of the standard over on FanDuel tonight. So definitely want to get some action in still. Looking at 4 games and all over 200 totals so far. No real blowout concern outside of Clippers and Suns. Vegas has it as a 10.5-point spread right now, obviously favoring the Clippers. Everyone else is in about the 6 to 7 point range. The over-under that's very high tonight is 212 for the Nets and Bulls. So I also wouldn't be surprised to see if the Clippers Suns pull up a little bit more. So definitely keep a look at that. If you're looking at pace and stuff like that, everything's remotely similar. Obviously, the Nuggets, Raptors is up there, Clippers, Suns is up there, and then Bulls, Hawks, Kings, Nets. That's all relatively kind of average tonight. So looking at point guard, and obviously you have a slate with Chris Paul on it, no real value with him. He's the high-priced guy. Kyle Lowry has not been good so far this season. Turned the ball over quite a bit. The shot hasn't been dropping. The price has really dropped down from him, and you really notice it more on FanDuel. It's about a $2K difference. It's only about $1,000 on DraftKings. Interesting swerve tonight. Obviously, Lowry, one of the better fantasy point guards in the game. You can always take a look at him. But we kind of go down to the 6K range tonight, and there's, guys like Dennis Schroeder. There's Jeremy Lin. I don't mind these guys, especially Lin, going to get a matchup with, Rajon Rondo, not known for his defense at all. 6,500 on FanDuel is a relatively nice price. He's priced a little bit more accurately in terms of how everyone else is priced around Lin on DraftKings, because you look at DraftKings pricing has been a bit tighter this year in terms of guys being priced up. You don't see a lot of those mid-range steals like we did last year. So Lin was a guy who was usually floating around 5,400, but the way he's been playing, 6,300 is a relatively high price. I like him tonight. I think he's an interesting point guard too on FanDuel. I think he can lead the way on DK if you don't want to pay for him. You want to pay for some bigs like Cousins or Blake Griffin. You can certainly do that. Outside of that, though, you do have Ty Lawson still. Bit of a tougher matchup in terms of the Hawks. I don't mind him. You look at what he's been doing in terms of minutes. He's still playing, mid-30s. Fantasy points have been there. The usage is decent. You look at Lawson, I think he's a plug-and-play if he kind of fits the picture. Not a must on tonight's slate. But you know what? He's been above 20 FanDuel points in all games. Obviously, he's not a guy who's going to rack up a ton of real points. You got to hope he kind of gets that peripheral. He's got to get the steals going as he has. He does have 6 steals in 3 games this year. So he's been fairly solid and also kind of flirting with double-doubles in the assist column. So I don't mind Lawson. 5,100 is on FanDuel. It's pretty reasonable. And you look on DK, 56 isn't bad either. Looking at shooting guard, and tonight, obviously, with Harris still out for the Nuggets, obviously that puts Barton in a good spot again. Look at that matchup. Still a 98 team total on the road at Toronto. If you're worried, obviously Toronto was one of the teams we didn't take a ton of guys against last year, but 98 team total tonight. I don't mind Barton at his price, especially at a shooting guard or small forward position on DraftKings. Shooting guard only on FanDuel. 5,300 though, really reasonable price. 57 on DK isn't bad either. Outside of that, though, I'm not really diving down into the Kyle Korvers, the Aaron Aflalos tonight. It's a little bit low. They're both below 4K. I think I'm going to sit with the mid-range guys and try and kind of fit them in with a Bogey, fit them in with a Millsap, Griffin, just pay up for one of the stars and go balanced elsewhere. Otherwise, if you're paying for kind of 2 of the stars and trying to do that, that's where you probably are going to be looking, because it is one of the weaker positions. Small forward, and this one, TJ Warren, his price is coming up a little bit, but he's been the most consistent Suns player so far this year. Obviously, the backcourt really hasn't been doing much. We've seen Devin Booker has not gotten the shot going. He's been very bad from the field to start the season. Eric Bledsoe is always an interesting play, but obviously a tough matchup against Chris Paul. So I do like Warren. You look at this matchup for him, high-paced game. He's playing bigger minutes. I do like the way he's scoring the ball right now. He's also rebounding quite well. So 25, 44, and 38 FanDuel points over the last 3 games. He's been very solid on the defensive side as well. I think with the state of small forward tonight, obviously you do have your Jimmy Butler. Then it's a pretty big drop-off. Rudy Gay has played well. I'm not going to knock him in tonight's slate, you can look at him as well. But I do like Warren in that mid-range for 5,500, especially on FanDuel, where you do need two small forwards. Warren's also an interesting mid-value play on DraftKings, so you can go ahead and give him a look there. If you want to go one lower, Damari Carroll is interesting at 4,600 on FanDuel. And 4,500 on DK. 105 team total. Obviously, you're looking at Valanciunas tonight. You're looking at DeRozan. Damari Carroll in the small forward spot, interesting play. If you need to kind of round out some cash, he's cheaper than Warren by about $1,000. This is a guy who doesn't have a tremendous ceiling, though. I think in terms of a cash game, if you're looking to kind of get that extra bump up somewhere else, I don't mind Carroll using him. GPP, so I don't think the ceiling's really high enough for him to do much damage. Outside of that, I'm not really looking at anyone else as small forward. I think it's a relatively weak position, obviously on a 4-game slate. Power forward, though, interesting in terms of value. You have Taj Gibson, who's going to play still fairly cheap, 5,100 on DK, 5,400 on FanDuel. I'm looking at him, obviously a big total for Chicago tonight. This is a guy who's going to play about 25 to 28 minutes. He's going to flirt with a double-double against a relatively weak front court there in Brooklyn. I don't mind him tonight. I think you can use him, kind of deploy him in all formats. I know I talked about a ceiling with Carroll, but this is a guy, I think 25 to 30 FanDuel points from a spot, because you look at power forward, unless you're paying up at both spots or you go in different directions, you're looking to kind of dive down into this mid-range, and there's numerous guys here. Interesting with Daryl Arthur coming back. Expected to play about 10 to 12 minutes tonight. I don't like that. Sorry, 12 to 15 minutes. I don't like that. I think, you're looking at this Nuggets front court. Kenneth Faried, Nikola Jokic, Nurkic. You're looking at all these guys that are sitting in that mid-range, and you want to play, and it's like, oh, man, something's coming in terms of who's getting knocked out for the minutes. Kenneth Faried's played really well off the bench, 28, 30 minutes over the previous 2 games. Does he get the bump down? It could be Jokic. It could be Nurkic. It could be these guys that we've been using and deploying. They're still cheap enough for me to look at. Nurkic, 5,200 on DraftKings, or on FanDuel. I don't mind him. Jokic, though, 7K on DraftKings is a little higher than I'd like. But obviously, I think on FanDuel, 6,100, he's worth the risk. These guys are all worth the risk. It's just a matter of who is the odd man out tonight, and there is someone coming. So hopefully we can kind of keep an eye on that. But as always, the Denver front court situation has always been jam-packed. It's been frustrating to use in terms of a fantasy standpoint. The fantasy points per minute have always been good behind these guys. It's the foul trouble. It's the 20 to 25 minutes that they play. So that's something to keep an eye on tonight's slate. If you want to go for an all-out fade, I think that's worth it, because a lot of people are going to be looking to take some shots. You can play it safe and go that route as well, or you can take the risk, which I will also be doing. Trevor Booker in that Brooklyn and Chicago game, 4,700 on DK, 5,300 on FanDuel. This guy was obviously just a fill-in option last year, but getting the starts here in Brooklyn, and he's looked pretty good. Back-to-back double-doubles. He's playing upper 20s in minutes. This is a guy who, on the defensive side can grab a couple steals from you. I like him quite a bit in all formats tonight. I think power forward, he's an interesting power forward too. If you're going different directions on DraftKings, you can plug him in to kind of pay up for guards. You can go that whole route. So I don't mind him at all. Outside of that, though, we're starting to kind of look at guys. Mirotic for Chicago has been okay, but he's getting minutes. Obviously, he's a guy who has to run hot and kind of get streaky in terms of shooting to really get that upside going. I don't mind him in a GPP format tonight. He's an interesting swerve. Outside of that, though, we're really just looking at some of those mid-range guys and hoping that they come through. Center tonight, in terms of value, you have Jonas Valanciunas. I like him as a discount from other guys like Howard, from a discount from Lopez, a discount obviously from DeAndre Jordan, Cousins. So intriguing option for me. He's been very solid. The usage has been there. The minutes have been there, which has been the most important thing. We look towards the end of last year. This was a guy who wasn't playing a ton of minutes, but 31, 35 in the first 2 games, has double-doubled, rebounding the ball very well. 6,400 on FanDuel, really nice price tag for him. Obviously, it is a competition between him and Boogie. but I do like that quite a bit. On DraftKings, you can roster both of them if you please. 6,700 there, really nice price. About 1,000 cheaper from Howard, about 500 cheaper than DeAndre Jordan. So you get a little bit of a discount there. Outside of that, I mean, Tyson Chandler is kind of the lone value option. We've seen Justin Hamilton play pretty well. He's a guy who has been around 20 to 25 minutes when Brook Lopez is not sitting. Intriguing option. I'm not going to have a ton of exposure tonight. I do like a lot more centers than I do him. But you look at Tyson Chandler, 4,200. This is a guy who, gets the rebounds going. He's not going to be asked to score a ton. If he gets a couple blocks, gets that 15 rebound mark. But you know what? He's been a double-digit rebounds over the last 3 games. And this is a matchup against DeAndre Jordan, who you look at the Clippers last year, they did allow a lot of production to centers, so you're hoping for a couple more putbacks. I don't mind Chandler as kind of a value option, more so on DK if you're looking to roster multiple centers, because 4,300 not a bad price cut. When you have Nurkic, when you have Valanciunas on FanDuel at that value, that's a much better kind of look to go tonight. So that's going to wrap things up for the 4-game slate. Be sure to head on over to DaveFantasyCafe.com. We got our cheat sheets coming up. We will have a value article. We will have GPP picks as well for today's slate. So be sure to head on over and check that out.